Welcome to our very first episode of The Pursuit of Curiosity, a series of conversations with academics, students and prospective researchers who are just curious. They all have a sense of discovery, a desire for continuous learning. Our podcast is supported by the Finance and Society Research Institute, or FISRI for short, which is an independent home for research within the University of Gloucestershire. FISRI seeks to collaborate on finance-related research to enhance sector-wide practice and policy. Much of our research is undertaken by the MSc, MBA and PhD students who have extensive practitioner experience. Our aim is to bring industry and academia closer together. I'm Eddie Grant, your host for today's adventure, and I'm delighted to be joined by two distinguished academics, Dr. Charles FISRI and Professor Bob Ryan. Welcome to our first episode, Charles and Bob. Before we delve further, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourselves, your role, and particular areas of expertise? How about you, Bob? Do you want to go first?
Yes, I'll go first. I'm a Professor Emeritus, which means that I formally retired from active life, as it were, but I've been an Emeritus Professor here for more than a dozen years. My background before that, I trained as a natural scientist when I was young, did my degree in chemistry and other scientific subjects. Then I trained to become a chartered accountant with a company which eventually formed part of KPMG. Well, that was a long time ago. I then entered into academic life, embarked on it. Really a big step then, but I entered academic life, dare I say, in 1974 at the University of Manchester. Since then, a lot of my career was devoted to establishing MBA programs and new business schools, one at the University of Hertfordshire, then the University of Southampton. I set up their management school. Then I moved to the University of London, Royal Holloway, where I set up their MBA program and also was head of the management school there before coming to the University of Gloucestershire. Since then, I've been heavily involved in supervising research at a high level, doing doctoral degrees and similar sorts of programs, for example, DBAs. And over my career now, I've now supervised somewhere around about 50 doctoral students. So 50 people out there have suffered from my supervision. It's incredibly enjoyable work. It's predominantly one-to-one relationship with the student. You get to know them very well indeed. And to help them on their research pathway is a huge, huge privilege. And that's where I am now, supervising lots of work. Area of expertise has migrated. When I entered academic life many years ago as a chartered accountant, I thought, do I want to do lots and lots of accountancy? No, I thought I'll do lots and lots of psychological research into accounting. So I got involved in that very early on. And that's been my predominant area of interest really over the years, has been in the process of building expertise in accounting and finance and other related areas, and looking at how we form good quality judgments about financial issues. So does that give you enough there, Eddie?
Brilliant. Makes me sound really inferior. But,
oh, good.
Charles, over to you.
Well, that was a tall order there, Bob. So I'm Charles, as you have called me. My other name is a Champong. that has the link to my Ghanaian background. So technically, I should say a champion Charles Free. I am now a senior lecturer in accounting here at the business school. I look after our MBA and our MSc, which you introduced, which looks at bringing practitioners into academic life. Previously, I qualified as an accountant. Not that long ago, Bob. I did. Mine was in the early 2000s. Chartered accountant. Wasn't really excited about accounting in its traditional form. So I leaned onto the finance side a bit more. I went into treasury a bit. And then the love of knowledge drew me into academia. And I've been here at this university since 2011. Over the course of that period, I've done a lot of teaching across the spectrum. I mean, across the business side, the finance, the accounting side, decision making and all that. But when it comes to research, I have a keen interest in the mind and machine paradigm. I've always been fascinated about expertise. So you may not be surprised to know that Bob was my PhD supervisor. And we forged that relationship very early on, trying to really understand what makes people good at what they do. That has drawn me into being very excited about how to use data science to augment kind of professional expertise. So that's where I have been. But recently, I've taken over this whole endeavor of building our relationship as an institution with the financial services industry. That has meant that I look look across the board, our MSc, our MBA, and our PhD entrants who are practitioners. So applied research and how that will really propel people into contributing towards the creation of knowledge. That has been my forte, if I should say.
Brilliant. It's just making me feel really inferior now. Listen to you. So, as I said, I'm Eddie Grant. I am a practitioner. So, I come from the finance industry, and I was on the original cohort for the MSc. I chair the advisory board for FISRI, and I sit on the Personal Finance Society board as well. And really what we're trying to do today is to really talk about academic research and to help students as well as they endeavour on their journey of discovery. And what I thought would be quite good, because I'm a qualified tea sommelier, that's probably the only qualification that the two of you haven't got, is I always like to ask you about your favourite hot beverage, but I'll tell you a little bit about mine to give you a couple of minutes to think about your drink of the day. So I start every morning with a tea and a spoonful of honey. And today was a Victoria Grey. Now, Victoria Grey is a black tea and has cornflowers, licorice, and lavender in it. And it's made to absolute perfection. So you know I'm quite a detailed person. But Bob? What's your preferred beverage of the day?
My preferred beverage of the day would be a small glass of whiskey in the evening before settling down. But I wake up to a mug of coffee, which put through my coffee grinder and so on. I'm not an expert on it because I've lost my sense of taste and smell a long time ago, but it does the trick. It wakes me up, you see. That's the crucial thing. It could taste absolutely foul, but I don't know. I can't tell. So a coffee in the morning, get me going, and a little glass of whiskey in the evening to stop me.
Sounds like a perfect combination. And Charles?
Well, I'm not a hot beverage person, sadly. I do smoothie, I would say, in the morning. And I mean, I'm reminding Bob again, it's a kale. It has to be a kale smoothie.
Kale?
Kale smoothie.
You're brave.
Yeah. Or maybe warm water.
Okay.
That gets me going in the morning.
That's probably why you've got so many medals behind your desk with all your athletic prowess. Right, let's sort of move into the sort of main meat of the podcast. So as I said, what we're trying to do is look at academic research and to help students. And you've given me some really good topics to prompt you on. And the first area really is looking at the differences between academic and professional knowledge. So, Bob, do you want to sort of kick us off? What are the differences?
I read that on the notes for this meeting, and it really is an interesting, challenging question. I think the one common point in it is the notion of knowledge, which, as Plato tells us many centuries ago, knowledge is justified through belief. And you've got broadly two mechanisms that we're looking at by which that knowledge is created and conserved. The academic approach through research works in a particular way. It is focused upon asking really interesting questions and then going out and finding answers to them. And that's the way that knowledge is generated through the research process. It's about getting really good questions and then figuring out how you're going to answer them. Now, practitioners broadly harvest and collect knowledge appropriate for their discipline, and they then, and this is only a broad categorization, they then apply that knowledge to the solution of problems, to the solution of questions that need answering. So we're both about the business of knowledge, its creation and its conservation, but the route is, it's a broad brush approach to it, but the route in is a little bit different. With research, it's all about the questions and getting those questions right, and then looking for really good answers, where the professional community develops and conserves available knowledge in a problem domain and then finds the applications, the questions that can be answered with it. So we're both about the same game, which is about knowledge and how it's created and conserved. But some broad brush differences about how it's approached and how it's done.
That's really interesting. And Charles, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bob has said it there nicely. So both domains are about knowledge, but probably like he said, the focus and how it is validated is probably slightly different. Shouldn't be, but for given reasons, it is fair to probably say that professionals think about practice more. So people who are in industry are really hands-on in the supposed real world, dealing with challenges right there and then. That means that the way they develop their knowledge doesn't mean they don't have academic knowledge. Most professionals would have gone through some academic training, but at a point, they kind of, it's possible for you to have removed yourself from that constant questioning and coming up with new ideas to really focusing on how do I apply it. So maybe one word I might say, professionals are practice oriented and maybe academics are more about generating the knowledge. So the focus might be different, and the way the knowledge is acquired is also a bit different, because if you're a practitioner, you probably don't have that much time going through the whole process of creating a new idea before you apply it. You want to see what is the knowledge, you find it and you're running with it. But in the background, in the academic environment, you're asking those probing questions, expanding the domain of knowledge so that people who are practicing can grab it and use it. But we are about changing the dial a bit. So what FISRI is saying is there shouldn't be that kind of gap between creating the new ideas and using it. We are all about knowledge. So shouldn't we be working together as academics? Shouldn't we be really dealing with real world problems and challenges instead of removing ourselves from the practical world and maybe only talking about things that are theoretical? Theory and practice should cohabit. I mean, that is the idea that FISRI is about.
And I remember, and I think I've told you this story, I remember arriving on that first day for the first cohort of the MSc, and I arrived late, as I always do, and walked into the big auditorium, and it was like I had just landed on another planet. And so in my experience being a practitioner, my experience coming into your world was it took time to adjust. It took time to actually understand what the challenge was, and then how to tackle this new challenge that I had, and it was very abstract for me. When you talk to students like I was, is that a common feeling that you experience?
Oh yes, very much so. I expect Charles would agree with this. You see, practitioners with experience coming in, and I don't do as much of it as I used to, but in the world of MBA teaching, you see the new students, mature students, many of them very, very professional, very practice oriented, sitting in front of you with terror in their eyes. Suddenly we're changing the whole rule of the game about how they're sort of thinking and they're going to develop. But yes, very common experience, but they get over it very quickly, because they soon appreciate that the process of gaining knowledge, the way that we do it in academic life, allied to their practice, can be a very powerful combination. Because they move from the application of their practice and their practical knowledge, etc., to a world where they're starting to think about broader questions, getting good answer to bigger problems, which in the fullness of time can be converted into practice.
So a common experience, the way I normally say it is, that is expertise. I mean, in the professional world, the knowledge is a bit more tacit, like it's there. You do it without thinking. Sorry, I'm not saying practitioners don't think, but the way we talk about it in academia is when you become a bit more rigorous, and you may have to be a bit detached, be unbiased, and try to be objective. So we try to make explicit that tacit knowledge, so drawing it out of them. And the only way that we know how is to step back and ask questions, and get them to question things, question what you see, question what you do, question what you read. And it's when you take hold of all of that and you piece it together that it becomes part of you. So it could be daunting, but I mean, they've got a technical knowledge. So there is a scaffolding there for us to build new structures around.
Yeah, sure.
And you must have, with the students you've been working with, you must have been able to help them understand the relevance of their research and then how they can really get the impact from that. How do you feel that skill, that research skill, will help people in finance?
Well, generally, the ability to ask really good, focused questions and figure out about how you would go about answering them is really fundamental to the research process and a lot of what we do in the academic world. And in finance as well. I mean, it's just such a huge field with so many different ramifications. You cannot run out, or you cannot exhaust the number of really interesting questions you can ask in the finance area. So it's just helping the practitioners to sort of, in a sense, turn their thinking around a bit and to focus on identifying the questions that they really want to get answered, and then how on earth you're going to get the answers. And I think at whatever level you're dealing with, whether it's an undergraduate program or whether it's a master's program or a PhD or whatever, essentially the process is very similar. Getting them to turn their thinking round and to begin to ask questions. Really, that's it. And you alluded to that, didn't you, Charles?
Yeah, definitely. So we try to use 3 phrases to capture that journey. We say you have to be curious. Curiosity, it drives everything, but you have to be authentic. So that's when the way to help them, we have found, is when you look at the personal journey and the interest of the person. What are the things in your sphere of influence that you think need to change? Have you reflected on them? So that authenticity, if you're very authentic and you're thinking about what you do, it's very easy for us to then connect that practice with theory. So we talk about curiosity, we talk about authenticity, and we talk about connectivity. Because it's very easy for them to, if I just say risk, it rings a bell, and then they're like, oh, and then we can talk about the theories, and then we can apply it to an aspect of what they do. And like Bob said, it's so broad because it's all about the well-being of individuals and society and all that. So once you have that deep conversation started, it is very easy to then ask the questions. And then you go on, and it's fascinating when you see the light bulbs go like, oh, I never thought about that. And then you go and read. And I mean, one phrase that most practitioners keep coming back and using is, I've just gone into a rabbit hole. I found a rabbit hole, and then I'm like, come back, like, because otherwise they go far deep, and then they realize that the expanse of knowledge is so broad. Yeah. But then, like Bob said, you have to ask the right question, and it is fascinating. I mean, that journey is fascinating. Yeah. And then they take ownership of it very quickly. People feel empowered and see spaces and gaps that they want to make an impact around. It's quite fascinating.
I think the thing that I noticed, first of all, you have to follow the structure. There is a prescribed way of doing it. If you buy into that, then your life's a lot easier. You have to be able to, I found, it's very easy. I call it follow the breadcrumbs of one document leads to another document, leads to another document, and you can lose yourself. And actually coming back to what being very specific what you're researching, rather than just carrying on all over the shop. Being very specific, I think, is something that I've taken away.
Because the world is full of rabbit holes.
Yes.
I mean, you get. It's almost uniform experience that I've had across my life of supervising students in research is that they say they always find a very interesting rabbit hole that they want to go down. But
it's too big as well. That's the other thing. Isn't
yeah,
it?
that's right.
You can't then answer the question that you
absolutely.
set out to do.
I mean, that is everyone comes along and they want to do a PhD, which is going to lead them to their Nobel Prize. And you just know it ain't going to happen. The Nobel Prize, the PhD, yes, but the Nobel Prize, probably not. I think if we're talking about, say, doctoral level work, where I've done so much of my work, for the first 6 months, possibly 9 months, a year, you're persuading the student to focus, to get the questions defined with precision, working at it. I tell them when they write out their questions, I say, right, what we've got to avoid here are conjunctions. We've got to avoid conjunctions because you're trying to sneak in at least 2 questions into one. And I'm not going to let you do that. You've got... It's getting them to focus on an issue that we can really then work out how we're going to get the answers, what method is going to work potentially to answer the question. And 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, it works. It works. So Lee, one bit of advice I give to my students in jest, I say, one thing you've got to do what I tell you. Because it is so seductive. When people really get into an interesting knowledge domain, they start to chase after hares. They keep down, these are hare holes, rabbit holes, that Charles was talking about. And I can recount the story of a young researcher who joined, do a PhD, member of staff doing a PhD, and he came up with a proposal, and we went through and we developed the proposal and got it submitted, and it was approved. And then he comes in and he says, Bob, he says, I've got this idea. Could we do this? And this iteration went through about 2 or 3 phases where the proposal would change. Luckily, once the project is approved, that's fine. We're through that hurdle. But we went on and eventually managed to narrow him down into one particular project. And I won't embarrass him to say who it was, of course.
We don't know. We don't know who it was. We don't. Do we?
He's been very polite about you, Charles. Tell me a little bit about FISRI, because the whole point of that is to close the gap between academia and practice. So do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is we're looking at what happens beyond the chartered status, as we say. What we're saying to our colleagues in industry is there's a lot more for them to do, a lot more that they can achieve by contributing towards the creation of the knowledge that will sustain our industry. So there is the MBA and the MSc for chartered. But beyond that, I mean, I remember, Eddie, once upon a time when you said, what do you do with your dissertation once you've done it? So there will be people out there who probably haven't done our MBA or our MSc, but have done it somewhere else, or maybe have done a PhD. What are you doing with that thesis or that dissertation? That is what FISRI is about. So FISRI is that space for current practitioners, graduates, academics, institutions to come into that space and challenge us by asking us interesting questions. Mm-hmm. if we collaborate, we think we'll be able to share ideas and pursue these challenges. So that's what FISRI is. We have the means to support people to develop their dissertation or thesis into a publishable piece. Well, normally when we say publishable, people are thinking about academic papers, but it's more than that. What we are doing now is an example. There are means to disseminate your knowledge and further extend your influence. So it might be coming on a future podcast series. It might be developing your paper into something that we can publish on our website or support you to attend conferences and further publish. We are thinking about white papers. I mean, there are very fertile grounds to kind of nudge regulators about things that need to change for the betterment of society. So these are the series of collaborations that we are hoping to initiate with people around the world, basically.
Brilliant. And you said you've been involved in many dissertations and pieces of research over the years, Bob. And how do you feel that research really helps the finance industry in particular? If I was someone who was thinking about doing MSc, MBA, why should I do it?
Well, you are committing yourself really to a long-term process. I mean, when I sort of think back over the decades now, which I've been engaged with my profession, in the very early days, accounting was really about producing a balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement, using traditional double entry historical cost accounting systems. There was a groundswell of opinion in the late 1960s, early 1970s, that it was deficient as a method for recording the performance of companies and so on. And there was a huge amount of research that came out around that process. And so over the decades, what's happened has been a very productive, not always acknowledged, very productive relationship between the academic engagement with problems in the early days, with accounting for inflation, and then the regulatory environment and accounting standards and all these sorts of things. And that over the decades has led to a very fruitful relationship. It's a relationship of, I'm just trying to capture the word, but where two quite different ways of thinking about the world have come together fruitfully to get us now to the accounting and financial systems that we have. With new students coming in, obviously they're adding a small block to the building. You know, they're going to be participating in that progress. And no matter what subject, what level they're working in, it may be that they do an undergraduate degree or a master's degree, they're going to be taking something back from that into their practice. And we in the academic world are also learning from them. And it is that interaction over the years that they participate in which has really shifted the way that we, in the accounting world, account for business activities, and in the finance world, the interaction between academic developments and practice has been phenomenal and ongoing. So you do you do an MSc looking at the implication of, say, some alteration in the tax regime for something or other. It's adding a little extra brick in the wall for both sides, both for on the academic side, allowing us to think about yet even more interesting questions to ask and ways of answering them, and on the professional side, expanding that base of knowledge and capability, which changes something from being an area of knowledge broadly defined into an area of professional practice.
And that's a great, the brick in the wall is great. The thing I love about the research is that you leave a question for the next person to pick up.
Definitely. And Bob ended on professional practice there. We cannot be deceiving ourselves that society is always questioning different endeavors and domains. People are really looking at the level of professionalism that finance has. What are we really bringing to the table? If somebody says a doctor, probably there aren't that many people who would question the credibility of a doctor. He's an expert. I mean, there's a bulk of knowledge behind the decisions and the judgments, and people don't question them that readily. How would people feel about our profession if we don't sustain our domain of knowledge, if we don't stay abreast with the time? The boundaries of our intellectual space can be eaten into by others. There are some threats, very obviously now. People are thinking about automation and all that. Some people worry about what would happen. Would I have a job? I mean, I get excited about the phrase, the AI is coming for your job. The robots are coming. How would we be able to defend our credibility if we cannot show that the human element adds value? We can only justify that and demonstrate that by showing that knowledge, that creating that boundary of expertise around our domain. And it's left to us to sustain it. So, and this is the only way. It's only the knowledge. This is a knowledge-driven endeavor. So if somebody asks me, do I really need a master's? Do I have to do a PhD? I'm like, well, somebody had to come up with capital asset pricing model, 60s and 70s.
Option pricing.
Option pricing. Yeah. What are you leaving? What are you contributing? Because if we don't sustain this, people might think it's only machines. So this is why I'm fascinated with the mind and machine paradigm. The only way we can maintain that credibility is to develop that thinking, that expertise around the human element, and use the other bits to demonstrate that we have a professional practice. I mean, society needs us. Otherwise, who needs us?
And you've got a conference, FISRI has got a conference, an AI-focused conference in September, haven't they?
In September. So in September, come on board, come and see what people are doing. I mean, we were at a seminar last week, and a lot of the people were talking about this idea that if you hear people talking about AI, right, and data science, but there are only few people doing it, right? There are only few people who are really focused on using it and kind of intentionally using it to good effect. Where is the best practice for that? So we want you to come in September, come and contribute if you're out there and you're really doing this. We are certainly doing it here, so we'll be showcasing the green shots of how to use data science and AI to really improve our professional practice. Yeah, September 12th it is.
Excellent. Little advert for you. And Bob, what question haven't I asked that I should have asked you today that you'd like to cover?
Oh, goodness gracious me, yes, where do we start? I think in terms of the general research and the opportunities that doing a programme of research offers to the student, to the participant, is immense in my experience. I've never ever come across a student at the end of they've done their MSc by research, or they've done a PhD in DBA, coming to the end of it and saying, really wasn't worth the time and effort, Bob. That has never happened. It never has happened. Quite the contrary. Everybody comes with the response. That has been, for me, has been a game changer. And not particularly what I put into the equation, but the process that they've gone through. It's expanded their thinking. They've opened their mind. Not so far that their brain falls out, as somebody commented, but certainly that they've opened their mind to the possibilities of ways of developing their practice and their lives more generally. So it's hugely worthwhile, in my experience, that people come on. So the question really revolves around that. What is the payoff for the individual? And it is immense, in my experience.
Yes.
It's been, I've made 2 engagements in my life with doctoral research. When I joined academic life, first thing I did really was sign up for a PhD program in a subject I found completely uninteresting, but you persevere. But later in life, I came back to it and did it again, not that many years ago, because I was fascinated by the process of going through a doctoral program and how it could formalise, and you could learn yourself a huge new domain of knowledge and so on. And I expect you found the same with your PhD program, didn't you?
Definitely. I mean, you had some very interesting comments there earlier on about me, but curiosity, it's fascinating, and it's where dealing with the uncertainty. I mean, this is something that I wanted to talk about. So I thought you were going to ask me the same question.
Yeah, absolutely. What question should I ask you?
So the nature, research is very uncertain. So if I have any piece of advice for my colleagues, the professionals who will join this endeavor, in the professional domain, dealing with uncertainty is probably a bit different from the way you deal with it here. Here, you have to be very comfortable with the unknown, and pursuing that unknown. There's some joy, almost some satisfaction with it. But our professional colleagues sometimes cannot handle the fact that they don't know what the end result will be. It seems as if in the professional domain, when you're solving a problem, you know what the solution might look like. With research, sometimes, in fact, most of the time, you have an idea, but you also have to accept that the uncertainty is immense, right? You may come across something that changes your thinking completely, and you have to be comfortable with that. So for me, dealing with what I call irreducible uncertainty, that is fun in a sense, because it keeps you wanting to know more. And the more you go, the more you learn. And that brings you to many junctions where you have to transfer knowledge, access knowledge from a different domain. You quickly realize that, oh, we haven't done this in finance. Why don't we? And then you go and read a bit of psychology. And then a bit of sociology comes in. And then a bit of physics and a bit of data science. And then it becomes a very interdisciplinary endeavor. and then you become an academic. Then you have arrived. So that pursuit of knowledge and adding and connecting things could be a bit unsettling for professionals who come in here because they see too many branches and I can't handle this. Tell me what to do. And your supervisor is like, I don't know.
I've got a clue.
I don't know. And whenever I say I don't know to a student, I see the look on their face, you should know. I'm like, I don't know. Go find out. And then we keep the clock ticking.
And I think, having come from a practitioner side, that's the biggest hurdle for the practitioner, because when I arrived and it was so vague and no one could tell me what the end picture looked like. You gave me a blank canvas, and you didn't even, it wasn't even a colouring by numbers either. It was just a blank canvas, and I didn't know what it would look like. And that really was challenging, and that takes time to adjust and to work it out. And every time you think you've got a question or you know what you're going to do, someone says something to you that completely sort of takes you off in another direction. And then you've got the ticking clock with the MSc and the MBA of sort of 12 months. And that's really challenging. That's that help, I think, is really important, and the importance of the tutor. And I think your tip before is listen to your tutor is a really important one. In my experience talking to students, where they get themselves into difficulty is when they don't listen to their tutor, who is there essentially to help you, not to hinder you.
Well, that's the idea.
So I think that's really challenging. And in most business situations, apart from crisis management, where you don't quite know what's going to happen, but you've also mapped it out. In crisis management, you've mapped it all out, so you know what the scenarios are. Here, you've got no idea of what the end result would be. So Bob gave us a tip: listen to your tutor. Would you have a tip for students, and then I'll come back to you for another.
I know what he's going to say. Don't listen to him.
I was going to counter that a bit about don't accept no for an answer. Kind of look a bit more.
Be curious.
Be curious. Yes, that's the idea. So keep searching. There will be an answer somewhere. I mean, I say don't worry too many times to my students. I've learned over the years, because they tell me at the end, they say, you kept saying don't worry, and now I understand. And that is when the picture becomes very clear, because most of the time, it's not like we are being cruel to be kind, but most of the time your supervisor has a faint idea, and when you listen to them and they say don't worry, they mean it, because they know that uncertainty will come to an end. That it will not continue forever. We'll find a way to truncate the process, because you will not fully answer all the questions. It can't be. I mean, you might have to do 10 PhDs on one topic. So we will map it out for the journey to end somewhere, and then the desire will be there, so you may continue. So don't worry is what I tend to say to my students. And when I say it, I mean it, because I know we will find a way to help them on their journey. So don't worry.
Don't worry.
Just be curious, but don't worry.
But don't worry. It's easy for you to say. So you gave us that tip and listen to your tutor. Was there any other pearls of wisdom in terms of tips that you would say to students?
I think it is really, at the sort of level we're talking about, it's be prepared to be open-minded. Be prepared to disagree. That's important. I'm more than comfortable if a student comes on, I don't really agree with what you suggested, Bob. I'm going to try this, is that right? I'll say, yeah, fine, no problem, off you go and do it. So really be open-minded, be curious, as Charles was talking about, curious, that really is important. And enjoy it. Enjoy it, you know, it's going to be the best year, 2 years, 3 years of your life.
And that enjoyment bit, going, I think people always sort of forget going to the graduation, taking your family, putting on the
outfit,
yes, and celebrating. I
the
think
ermine trim
is always an important part of the process as well, because also it's a
little bit of ceremony.
If you can take your children along with you,
yes, you can.
You can stimulate them to go on the journey
exactly
when it's their time to do it, and I think that's really that aspiration is really important.
Because what the children do, they look at their parents, they look at their role models, and I want to be like that. And Dad's marching up in a funny gown with a funny hat on, and he gets a scroll which he goes out and he puts in a frame and he sticks it on the wall. It means something for children. It's like Charles is laughing.
It's such a high pinnacle because we are always there. I mean, as academics, we normally sit up there and our students match up. It's so glorious because it brings back all those memories of those conversations, and you see the smile on their face, and you're like, this is it. It's real. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating. But then we hope they will be back. Maybe if they've done an MSc, probably be back doing a PhD. Or if they've done a PhD, come back and collaborate and inspire others on, like I'm saying, so that we keep the wheel turning, creating knowledge and guarding the boundaries of our domain with our expertise.
And before I go, I just want to come back to the Research Institute. So we've got people listening who hopefully will go on the journey to do some research, but then we've got some people who've done some research and want to get involved with the Research Institute. So how can they do that? What's the best way of connecting?
The best way is to please go to our website, www.glos.ac.uk/FISRI, FISRI. There is...
Or type in Finance and Society Research Institute, which is a lot easier, I can promise
you. You will find us on LinkedIn as well. We have sign-up sheets online, or email us, drop us an email, and it will be a conversation to talk about what your interest is or what your output is. And quickly we'll be able to decide on whether it's a paper that you write or a podcast series or a video recording of a sort. So it's very easy to get in touch online. And
that's something I think is really important. And you know, you mentioned the story I always tell of the dissertation I did at university and put it on the shelf, and it was on school meals, free school meals in Manchester, and Rashford went on to do something with my research, clearly, and I put it on the shelf. And I think that the challenge is, don't put your research on the shelf. Do something with it, make a difference. You've put a huge amount of effort into doing that research, and at least tell people about it. And I think FISRI is a great way to do that.
To communicate it, get ideas out there.
Brilliant. Look, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy people, and it's always generous of you to give out your time. So thank you very, very much. I hope this podcast has been helpful to people who have tuned in today or on demand at a later date. And I hope you've enjoyed the adventure, the pursuit of curiosity that you've been on a journey with us. And we look to interview more academics and more researchers who can share their story and their research, and really hope that as many people as possible can join us on this conversation. So once again, thank you, Bob, thank you, Charles, and thank you to everyone listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Thanks.